makes it attractive? I think the first thing that makes cities attractive are people.
People.
Yeah. The concentration of people, whether that's family or communities of work, or of leisure or churches or whatever it is. It's those sort of communities of people that make for cities, and that's what cities are all about. Cities are ultimately places of exchange, economic exchange, but also social exchange. And I think if people are happy in their social life, then they'll enjoy wherever they live, whether that's a village or whether it's a city. But if you're in a city, then I suppose there's so much more opportunity for different social networks and so forth.
Plays a quite important role. Or
density does, but I don't think necessarily positively or negatively. I think you can have very high quality cities at different densities. London's a good example. Parts of London are fairly dense, and parts of London are very, have very low density. And I think, you can have high quality places that are both dense and not dense. But ultimately, cities are about bringing people together, so you need enough density to make that work, I suppose, to make public transport work and all those facilities.
Okay. Scale goes down.
I'm not sure necessarily scale is the issue. It's the way that scale breaks down into recognisable units. So somewhere like London, whilst it's a big city, clearly has many different centres within it that people identify with in different ways. Lots of villages. Tokyo's the same, and people identify with their local neighbourhood, as well as with where they work, as well as with the city as a whole. But I'm a Londoner. I was born in London. I now work in London. But I don't know all of London. I only know parts of London.
Even you.
Yeah, I mean, exactly. I think people living in a big city like this, they know the bits that they've lived in or they've worked in. They don't necessarily know the whole city. But that's fine, as long as those bits are sort of coherent places and give them all of the social support and other facilities they need to support their lives. I think that's what makes a good city work.
Okay. Wondering if it's happening also in London.
Yes, in London there's been a definite, what you might call a renaissance of the city.
Renaissance of the city.
Yeah, that the city has become much more attractive as a place to live, and London is growing a lot, and I think that's because it is a very successful city, and that attracts more people. More people want to live in the city.
That is from England.
From internationally.
Internationally.
Particularly from other parts of Europe, from Eastern Europe.
Okay.
But also, people from right across the world, and other people from elsewhere in the UK. London is a natural attractor. It's very much the sort of economic engine, I think, of the UK. But most people coming to the city, I don't think necessarily have a free choice of where they live, because inevitably you're tied down to what you can afford, you're tied down to the type of accommodation you need depending on your family size, and you're tied down to where you work and where your job is. And you need to be somewhere that you can get from home to your job relatively easily. So all those things limit where you live. I lived for quite some time in Nottingham, and then I moved back to London, and I wanted to be within a radius that I could cycle to work, and that naturally determined, within 5-6 miles, and then I wanted to be near a park because I've got a dog.
I see.
So I needed to find places where there was a park. Many people have children. I didn't then, but I do now. So now a big part of where people want to be is next to a good school.
Good school.
Or close to a good school. So all these things determine where we, you know, our choices, where we live.
North, south, east, west?
West London for a long time has been the more expensive part of London, whereas East London was the ex-industrial part of London. But there's been a lot of regeneration in East London, and it's a very, you know, parts of it are very attractive to live now. I live in southeast London, a place called Greenwich, which is a very historic place, very attractive. People like living there. So it just depends, I think, on who you are, what you can afford. Also, for people who are already in London, where their families are. You know, all those things determine which part of London we like. But I think the thing about a city like London or Tokyo is there's huge diversity in those cities. And so whoever you are, you can find the sort of place that you enjoy living. Although, of course, for many people who don't have the financial advantages that other people have, it's not always a free choice.
Maybe Europe?
Well, London has been growing since the mid-1990s. And that followed a period of many decades where London was shrinking. And people were moving out of the city. And from the mid-1990s onwards, and increasingly rapidly now, London is growing and is attracting a lot of people into the city. And I think part of that is just simply that London is now very much seen as an international centre. It's a places where businesses want to be. And therefore it's creating a lot of jobs, a lot of employment.
But wasn't it like that before the 1990s too?
Oh yeah, it's always been. Of course it was, but the extent to which it is, I think, has changed. And I think London's economy has diversified a lot in recent years. So I think that attracts a lot of people. And also in Europe, there's been new countries coming into the European Union, and those people are allowed to move across Europe and live where they wish. There's no restrictions on them, and London is a magnet for many of those people. I mean, there has been a general movement from the Eastern Europe to Western Europe anyway. And I think for those who decide to come to the UK, London is a natural focus because it's a very dynamic economy and there's lots of opportunity here. Even though, on the negative side, we have a big problem that we don't have enough housing. And so a lot of people are living in, you know, very cramped conditions or poor quality housing. And that is a really big problem that we face in London at the moment.
Really spread this, you know, it really helped.
Yes, I think that is I think the English language is obviously a big thing because so many people learn English around the world, and therefore it's easier, I suppose, to move to an English-speaking country than it is to one that isn't English-speaking. So that must have an impact, and I'm sure the internet played a part in also making that even more pronounced, that trend. To what extent it's dictated the popularity of London, I don't know. I mean, there are other places in Europe which are very popular as well and are growing and so forth. It's not just London, but London is particularly fast growing at the moment.
And investing in those real estate.
It is very easy, and there's a lot of companies that go overseas and try and attract international money into London. That has created problems in recent years. A lot of people are concerned that there's a lot of international money coming into London, buying up properties, inflating the price of property when we already have a shortage, and even buying property and not renting it out, which adds to the problem because there's a lot of vacant property.
Oh, that's very ironic.
It's called buy to leave. So people just buy a property and they keep it as an investment.
Wow.
And they don't use it, or it's not used, it's empty.
Wow.
It's a bit like having gold in the bank. You know, you buy a property in London and the prices just keep on going up and up.
Really? So they don't lend out.
Exactly.
Wow.
So it's seen in recent years as a problem by many. Although others argue that we should be grateful that international money wants to come to London and build and develop and create jobs and so forth. And I know the current mayor is very keen that international investors carry on investing in London. So there's debates about its pros and cons.
You feel you could do something
it is a very diverse city, and that means somebody said to me that everybody feels welcome in London. Doesn't matter who you are or how recently you've come to the city. You can feel at home very quickly if you decide to come and study in London or work in London for a period. And that is because of the great cultural diversity of the city. But also I think London is, and has become in recent years, a very dynamic place and very culturally rich in terms of events and activities that are going on. There's always things happening in London, which adds to the sort of spark, this sort of the buzz of the place.
Do you think maybe the history of the city plays some part of making this cultural diversity?
I'm sure it does in terms of this. I think the history of the city has an impact in two ways. One way in that, obviously, at one time, London was the centre of the big empire, and therefore there's historically been international links all over the world from London outwards, and a lot of people from those former colonial countries, a lot of communities have come to London, which has added to its diversity, and those processes continue to happen. You know, London is a historic city, and of course that is very popular to tourists. So it's a very London is the most popular city in the world in terms of the tourist attraction. You know, as a tourist attraction. So, and I think that obviously has something to do with the history of the city and so forth. You know, so, and that also adds to the dynamism. It adds to the buzz. It adds to the events and activities happening.
Idea behind that? Or?
Yeah, there has been an investment in the public spaces of the city for over the last 15 years or so.
15 years, so
gradually, little bits and little bits. Many people would say not enough. We need to do a lot more.
Really? Okay.
Yeah.
Wow.
I think many people would say that London is still too dominated by traffic. We still have many poor quality public spaces.
Wow.
We need to invest more. And but I think. I certainly would say we've made a good start. We've got lots of examples like Exhibition Road and others. And partly that's been a recognition that London, during the 1980s and 1990s, didn't invest in the city, didn't invest in the physical infrastructure of the city. And there was a decline, not just in the public spaces, but also in the public transport network. And so we've been catching up. We've had to have a period of significant investment to improve the city and to make it more attractive, not just for Londoners, but for tourists and for international investors and all the people that want to come to the city and invest in the city. So I know the last mayor and the current mayor of London have been very keen to promote high quality public spaces in the city. I don't think, I mean, London, the first mayor, Ken Livingstone, introduced a policy of congestion charging, and that's made a big difference because people driving into the centre of London now need to pay a charge. So that's reduced the number of people driving in the centre, which has meant that there's more space, potentially freed up space for public realm works and for pedestrians. So there's been a bit of a switch in priorities. And the current mayor is very interested in cycling and cyclists and has been introducing cycle networks in the city. So that's also another big investment that's been happening. I don't think we've gone nearly as far as cities like Copenhagen in that respect, and some of the Scandinavian cities. But I think London has been catching up, has been doing a lot of work to improve the quality of the public realm.
But why cycling?
Why cycling? Because it's healthy and efficient and it doesn't cost any money, and it's a very effective way of getting around the city.
And people start to ride more bicycles.
A lot of people are riding, yeah. There's been a big switch in the last 5 years or so.
Oh, really?
Yeah, I mean, it used to be, 10 years ago, very few people cycled in the city, and now there's been a massive increase. Yeah. I think within the whole of the southeast of England, there's a big... there's a growth in population, big demand for housing. So we don't really have that problem of shrinkage. Although some places need a lot of regeneration. Some places have problems. Some of our seaside towns, for example, around London, around the southeast Kent and so forth, have a lot of problems.
Oh, really?
A lot of unemployment and same with London. You know, London has pockets of great deprivation, side by side with great affluence. You know, and again, you know, that's something that a city like London, it's incredibly diverse in its populations in every possible way. And we have populations that are really very poor and find it a real struggle to live in the city because it's a very expensive place to live. And if you're unemployed or you're on a minimum wage, then it's incredibly difficult to live in this city.
So what happened to those people? Do they move out or?
Not necessarily, because London is where the opportunities are. So I think a lot of them struggle. There are various systems of support through social security that help them and their family. There's still a good degree of social housing in London, but we need a lot more. But there is a sort of heritage of social housing, particularly in parts of London like East London, and that's valuable. There's been a big growth in the private rental market in recent years, but a lot of people are living at very high densities, very poor quality accommodation. So there's real challenges as well. I wouldn't want to give you the impression that everything is fantastic in London. It's not. You know, there's some real problems, ingrained problems and difficulties here, particularly around the issue of housing and enough housing and enough quality housing, and the issue of cost of living. London, again, I need to emphasise that London has great diversity. It has the richest communities in the country, but also the poorest.
Oh, it's poorest.
Yeah, side by side in the city. So it's London is a microcosm of everything else. You know, with the country as a whole, if you like, it has all of those things in one place. And some of that is in the suburban places. Some of the suburban boroughs to the east of London or to the south of London have some, you know, real problem area. But also some of the inner city areas like Newham and places like that. Although parts of East London have really benefited from the Olympics, for example. And the Olympic Park and all the regeneration that's happening around there is really changing perceptions of parts of East London. And that would be worth, you know, if you've got time before you go and have a look out there. That's very interesting.
Well, thank you very much.
Pleasure. Is that
Thank
it?
you.
Finished?
Yes,
Well,
it was really good.
Excellent.